with the EU to boost the economy. Now we move on. Russian forces have launched at least 8 attacks overnight on Zaporizhzhia, Ukraine, injuring 21 people, including 3 children. A rocket hit an apartment building in the Shevchenkivsky district, causing significant damage to residential blocks and vehicles. Firefighters are conducting rescue operations while authorities assess if anyone remains trapped. The attacks between 1 a.m. local time and 5:30 a.m. local time damaged 14 apartment blocks and 9 private houses. 2 injured are in serious condition. The Russian Defense Ministry stated that overnight Russia carried out a massive strike on Ukrainian military-industrial enterprises used by the armed forces of Ukraine, as well as military airlifted infrastructure. President Zelenskyy has condemned the strikes as brutal and called for stronger international pressure on Russia. Air raid alerts were issued across Ukraine, and neighboring Poland closed airspace for the 2 cities. Now, for this discussion, we are joined by retired Major General Dr. Rajan Kochhar. He's a senior strategic and defense expert. Joins us live from New Delhi. Welcome to the NewsX World. Thank you for joining us today. Today, the strikes have continued. We saw that Sergei Lavrov made comments towards EU, NATO, and Ukraine in particular, and NATO in particular. What do you think that is going to happen next? Do you think that EU or NATO will respond back to Lavrov's comments as well?
You see this situation, Suma, the way it is building up, it's very, very clear that Russia is escalating the war. And we have seen in the last 2 to 3 months, there has been a tremendous amount of escalation, not only in Zaporizhzhia, in other areas of Kherson, Kharkiv, and the railway tracks are being targeted. Already more than 10,000 kilometers of railways has been destroyed by the Russians. NATO is trying to flex its muscles now, because this war is coming to a decisive stage where possibly Ukraine is not able to defend itself against the Russian onslaught. And what is happening is that Zelenskyy was banking upon the support of Trump all this while. That has been forthcoming, but not in the measure Zelenskyy wanted it to happen. The second important aspect is that statements now emanating from Trump do suggest that Trump and NATO are now aligned in their thought that this war, the peace, whatever Trump was trying to project, is not happening, and this war has to be carried forward. If that is the case, I see a lot of escalation on the part of NATO also. Now I can see these voices from Poland, Romania, Germany, and all these countries have started trying to tell Russia that they may join this war, because Ukraine, as I see things, is not able to sustain this offensive. So I see some movement in the Arctic Ocean taking place now. Russia recently launched its P-700 anti-shipping cruise missile. It was tested about 2 days back. So these are some kinds of provocation on the part of the Russians, also trying to tell NATO that Russia is prepared in case NATO decides to strike. And Lavrov has also made the same statement. He has made the statement that in case NATO decides to launch any kind of a misadventure, the Russians are prepared. And that is a posturing, I would call, because right now no redeployment of forces have taken place either on the NATO side or on the Russian side. Because if these are mere words being played at, because they have to be seen if they are being translated into action, which I don't see as of now, because I don't see any of the NATO forces getting aligned
Yes.
to fight a war with Russia. Neither I see the Russian forces also getting aligned. So
Yes.
as of now, I see this as a political posturing, and not more than that. But these are very difficult times, because there is a very thin line between a strike, if it has to happen, because any small incident can trigger a
Yes.
larger war, and I would not like to see the NATO getting involved into this conflict, because the moment NATO gets involved, then we are looking at a third world war scenario.
Right. We also saw that Turkey was suggested by Russia as a place to meet with Ukraine. But Turkey is in NATO, and also Turkey, we saw Turkey move its military ship for NATO against Russia in support of Ukraine. Do you think that Turkey is still is a good location for talks, for peace talks for these two countries?
See, Erdogan he is balancing himself, very well, because the last talks happened in Istanbul, and there was a talk of a sequel now, and carrying actually forward the first talk in Istanbul resulted in the exchange of the prisoners, because that was the first step. Ukraine prisoners were handed over and the Russians prisoners were handed over. So that was seen as a positive culmination of the talks which happened in Istanbul. You see, Turkey may be a part of NATO, but it is not totally aligned with the Americans' thought on the Russians, because Turkey and Russia do maintain a good relationship, and I think these are, in case planning is there to hold the next round of talks in Turkey. I don't think Turkey being a part of NATO is going to be of much consequence, because as of now, I don't see NATO coming into the equation of fighting a war with Russia.
Thank you very much, retired Major General Dr. Rajan Kochhar, for joining us and sharing that insight as a strategic and defense